Hello, everyone. I'm Peaceful Nick the Medium, and today we have Miss Molly with us. She is known as the finder of lost items, but she also participates in many, many other healing modalities. And today I'm just going to ask her some brief questions, and we are going to get to know her and her specialties, how she was trained, how she learned how to do all of these wonderful things and help so many people. So, welcome, Miss Molly.
Hey, thank you for having me today. You're also one of my favorite intuitives, so I was very flattered that you asked me to do this.
I thank you. I appreciate that so much. Tell me about your journey. Were you always working in the spiritual modalities? Did you have a different career? Did you grow up with weird stuff happening? Tell me about your brief life story
Yeah, I'll
of
try to keep it as short as
spirituality.
I can, since I am old. Well, I didn't know that I had any abilities, but I did learn at a very young age. I had a near-death experience when I was 3.
Mm.
I the drowned in my grandmother's pool, and I had an
I
experience.
drowned when I was 6 months old.
Okay, so that's
I don't
wild.
remember it. I don't
I
remember
do
it.
remember my situation, and it was honestly, I wasn't scared, which sounds funny, maybe for a split second. But anyway, during that episode, we'll call it, I did see a relative come forward. I didn't know who she was. I was only 3. And she told me, no, not your time, go back. And I did. And soon after that, probably the very same day for all I know, I started seeing and hearing and communicating with spirit, not really understanding. And of course, my parents thought it was just imaginary friend. I was playing, make believe, pretend, which was fine. But when I got to be about, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old, I started responding much more strongly because the energies I was getting were so much more strong over time. They were trying more and more to get my attention, probably trying to show me this was my calling, but not
Mhm.
realizing. So they would do more and more to kind of get my attention. So I was more verbal about it. I acted out more. So then at that point, my parents were concerned that maybe I had some mental health issues. So I started to see doctors and have all these tests done and this and that and the other thing. And then after a while, probably around 13 years old, I was really tired of being the weirdo and the strange kid. So I stopped telling them anything. According to them, the way they saw it was it just mysteriously stopped. And that even there was ideas that maybe I was making it up, trying to
Mm.
get attention. So at that point, I just kind of stopped discussing it. However, over the years, I still had a lot of things happen, premonitions. I'd see things, I'd feel things, I'd see spirit, I'd have interactions, I'd have poltergeist activity sometimes around. I had friends and other people witness. And then about right around pandemic time, which seems to be a lot of the time where a lot of people really had things kind of roll up, it was starting to get stronger at that point. And at the time, my partner said, you need to get some help. So
Mm.
I went to a workshop, and that's kind of the start of it all. And then after that, a couple of years later, I was on disability for an injury to my back. You asked me what kind of work I did before. At that point, I was in marketing and administrative assisting, and I had hurt my back and I couldn't work, and I was trying to figure out what am I going to do when my case is over.
Mhm.
And I literally said out loud one night before bed, Spirit, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but if you could give me an idea of something I can do where I don't have to work for somebody else and I can help people every day, I would love that. Next morning, woke up and something told me to go get some tarot cards. So I got in the car and I went to a metaphysical store and I bought some tarot cards. Now I had had a set for over 30 years, never really did anything with them. I looked at them, I was overwhelmed, I didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Brought them back, and that very day, I just came up with my own system on how to read them, and it just kind of took off after that. So that's kind of the
Wow.
short long story.
That is incredible. And I have some questions popping in my head. I hope I remember all of the ones
Okay.
from just that brief intro.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about your imaginary friends because
Yes.
now I, as you know, had a science career and still work
Yep.
in that realm a little bit for a very long time before my mediumship, which started January 19th, 2019.
We know the day.
Well, there's a reason why I know,
Yes.
but before that, as a child, I had an imaginary friend who lived in my basement, Cindy Dina. I've talked about her many times. And when I asked my mentor, when I was trained as a medium, She didn't think that was a spirit. She just, I don't remember how she explained it, but I thought when I was getting trained that, oh, that had to be a spirit I was talking to. So I asked her about it because I never thought of it after that. Like
Right, right,
my whole family knew her name. Like that's how
right.
important this
I don't know. It sounds
imaginary.
like a spirit to me, but that's just
Yeah,
me.
and that's why I asked my mentor. So I was just
Yeah.
wondering what your opinion was about that.
Well, when I see spirit now, it feels
Imaginary friends.
exactly the same way as my imaginary friends did. So I think it's the same
Okay.
thing
Okay. Yeah, because
for
now
me.
when I
Yeah.
see spirit, I don't see them in front of me
Right.
the way I do
Sometimes I
that.
do, but not very often. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more the way they
Occasionally somebody
communicate.
will walk through my house, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once in a while I see them. That happens on occasion, but generally when I was a kid, all the time I saw them. I think I got so scared it somehow my brain shut off seeing them as much as I used to.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it comes in the same way for me. So I don't think there's a difference. I just think that's what other people are calling it.
Okay, perfect. I was
Yeah.
just curious. I ask just about everybody who I collaborate with that question, who talks
Mm-hmm.
about imaginary friends, because,
Right.
I just want to see what everybody's opinion is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, and I see that you are not in a traditional house. You are
No,
on the mediumship,
I
which I
am. I live on a
love.
boat.
Tell me about how that is. How do you like living on the boat? How long have you lived there? And how did you convince your husband to name it the mediumship? Was
That
it
wasn't too hard.
easy?
That was the easiest part,
Okay.
probably.
Uh,
Well, actually, the way my husband and I met was sort of a happenstance too, which didn't feel like a happenstance if I really think about it. But we met walking down the beach in Florida. I was house sitting for a cousin. I had never lived in Florida. I'd maybe been to Florida one other time. Like I had no connection to Florida at all. I'm from California mostly.
yeah, me
And
too.
yeah,
I grew up in the
so
Bay Area.
what?
I grew up in the Bay Area, and now
Yeah,
I
no, I grew
also
up
live
on the
in
Central
Florida.
Coast near San Luis Obispo,
Yeah,
Santa Maria, Santa
yeah, yeah.
Barbara, that area. So anyway, that's how we met. And then when we met and we started the night we met, we talked for hours. We just hit it off immediately. We knew it was more than just, oh, I just met you.
Yeah.
And he said, I have a dream of sailing around the world on a sailboat. And he had recently been a widower and he was by himself. And I said, that's funny. I love sailing. I was sailing when I was a kid. It's my favorite thing. And I always thought it'd be fun to sail around the world. So
Mhm.
he didn't really believe me until the first time we got on a boat and he saw how comfortable I was. And then he was like, oh yeah, she does like boats. So he thought maybe I was saying it just because he was saying it. But
Yeah.
no, I really did feel that way. So anyway, when we were trying to figure out the name of the boat, we had all these funny names, all these plays on words. I love to use puns and stuff. And I don't know, I was talking to somebody and I said something about, oh, well, the mediumship is the harder thing or something. And right when it came out of my mouth, I thought, ship.
Love it.
Ha! And then a friend of mine said, you should have the slogan, bringing new dimensions to sailing.
I love it. Every
And
time I
so, yeah,
see your videos on social media, and by the way, all of her stuff will be linked below in the
yes.
video here. Every time I see the mediumship or hear her talk about it, I just smile. I'm like, it's so cute. I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah, because we had other names like, Sea Hag and, the Sea Witch and, like different, we're coming up with all these ideas. We had a lot of good ones, but that just stuck. It
Good.
just stuck. And I actually been working on designing a logo. I have a really cool logo that you guys will see soon when it's all done. But
I'm
yeah, so
so
we ended
excited.
up on the ship. Yeah.
I love it. And I love your deck dancing videos
Yeah.
and all of your sunset. I'm assuming you have sunrise and sunset
Oh
videos.
yeah, yeah. They're both on there. Yeah.
Gorgeous, beautiful, makes me smile. I'm a big,
Yeah.
sky
There's
maniac.
not a day that goes by that we don't say to each other, I can't believe we lived here like this.
Yeah.
So look
It,
at this beautiful sky, this beautiful, not to say it's an easy life. It certainly isn't, but a lot of times it is. There's ease involved for sure.
the
But
beauty,
that's,
it's just so beautiful.
yeah, it
Um,
really is.
and so you are known as, from what I see on your social media, for FOLI, which is
Right.
finder of lost items.
Correct.
Um, Tell me how that works, how you learned that, and just how all of that came about. Did you have to get trained to do remote viewing? Like, I'm just super curious about it.
No, it's so weird how it came about. The same way most things come about for me, kind of just organically and not on purpose, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
We were on a live on this boat, as a matter of fact, I believe. And it was probably about a year and a half ago. We hadn't been on the boat very long. And I was doing a live, and somebody said something like, hey, do you think, you're a psychic? Can you find my cat? And I said, uh, never tried it, I guess. I don't know. Sure. So just off the cuff, I said, oh, okay, let me try this. So there's a breathing technique that I use that I sort of lifted from, if you've ever heard of the Silva method, Silva.
Mhm.
Very interesting, worth looking at. Anyone interested in learning how to tune in, it's sort of like a relaxation technique that came out, I believe, in the 50s or 60s. And anyways, you can find it. It's free on YouTube, whatever. Anyway, so I was using that breathing technique, the 3-2-1, to sort of bring myself, down to a level of more of an open space.
Mhm.
And then I just thought about, she described what the cat looked like and the name of the cat. And I thought, well, this couldn't be much different than mediumship. Maybe I can reach out to the cat and have the cat show me where she is
Yeah.
or whatever. And sure enough, after I did the breathing, I saw a set of wood stairs with green peeling paint, like the paint was peeling off
Wow.
very noticeably. And I noticed like an old vending machine nearby. And I think even I saw a cigarette machine. So I knew it had to be like an old store or an old gas station, something older, rural, not modern.
Right.
And I described it really, really in a lot of detail. I even think I named the street, maybe even I don't remember. And she says, I know where that is. And then sure enough, a couple days later, she writes me and says, yeah, I found my cat. Not where you said, but that's where I went. And they said they saw my cat and they showed me which direction. And then I went that direction and my cat was there because they'd been feeding the cat. I guess the cat kept coming back.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I thought, wow, that's crazy. So the next live I did, I reiterated the story. And then people were like, well, wait, I lost my favorite ring. I lost my favorite watch. And I'm like, I don't know about this. And I said, well, okay, if you guys are cool with just not expecting it to work
Yeah.
necessarily and just going with the flow and see what happens, cool. So I did a whole handful of them that night. And a couple days later, I started getting responses from people. I found this. I found that. You were right. It's exactly where you said. And yes, you said it smelled like this. And yes, I went right to my perfume tray and there it was, or whatever it was
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
sense I related to them, somehow it helped them find their item. So now I've gotten way better at it because now I kind of been able to break down how I do it. At
Right.
first, it was like I didn't really know how I was doing it, so it was sort of hit or miss. Now I'm probably not exaggerating by saying I'd say 2/3 of the people do find their stuff quickly.
That's a very high percentage.
Yeah, I can't say that they never find it because sometimes they don't follow up.
Mhm.
And sometimes it does take a while. It doesn't happen right away. So I've heard from people as far as a year later finding it where I said, but maybe not interpreting what I said exactly. It's hard to explain, but sometimes my clues, I guess you could call them, are a bit cryptic because they're cryptic to me.
Right. Just like mediumship is.
I don't know enough about the person to be able
Right.
to really analyze why I'm saying or seeing what I'm seeing.
And
So as far as training goes, I was very interested in remote viewing when I first got into this in 2020, and was reading some things from Russell Targ and Ingo Swan, and Uri Geller, who actually mentored me shortly. And then, really more than anything, I was just reading up about it. I didn't really know, and then I actually experimented with it once with somebody else, and I was so accurate every single target I got. A couple months ago, I tried doing it pure remote viewing where people gave me coordinates of a location, and then I was supposed to tell them what I saw. A lot of success with that as well. Surprising.
So have
Yeah.
you read the gateway process
I have not read it. I've listened to the gateway tapes.
Okay.
They're interesting.
Very, very. And
Not
so,
to be taken lightly.
exactly. And so for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, the CIA did these experiments decades and decades ago that you can now read on the internet. They're real. There's many videos about it. It's
And
amazing.
you can download them on Spotify.
Yeah, you can. Yep, exactly. And they were using humans, psychics, for remote viewing purposes for essentially national defense.
Fine. Yeah.
And
And
they
they
did
still do it.
that. Yeah. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. And you think they don't
Yeah.
still do it? They absolutely do. So often, you and I and all of our colleagues who do the same work get a lot of criticism by keyboard warriors on the internet. And I always say, listen, look at
The
this
government does it.
gateway process project. Look at
Well, and
this.
were you a GATE kid? Were you in the GATE program?
Was
Gifted and Talented Education Program, the GATE program?
You know what's interesting? I just learned about that day before yesterday, and I was in a gifted program.
I was too. And
And
I
I
don't
was the
remember a lot
only
about
one,
it.
I was the only one that got through the whole year. All the other kids got kicked out in the middle of it.
I
And
don't remember a lot of it.
it was,
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of computer coding in seventh grade in a school in Annapolis, Missouri, which has 300 people in it.
Mm-hmm.
It
I
was,
mostly remember hearing tones and stuff, them having doing different tones in my ears
I
and
don't
things like that. That's
remember,
mostly what I remember.
I was just told it was a class for highly gifted children.
Yep. Yep.
And it
Well,
was in
most
my
of us
school. It was
were
in
in
my
that program.
school.
Yeah.
And
I wonder.
yeah, and when I saw that a couple days ago was the first time I ever heard of
Oh,
what you,
really? Okay.
yeah, never heard of it. I didn't realize. And I go, oh my God, I was in the gifted program in 1984-ish,
Okay. So I
something like
must be quite a bit older than you. Well,
I
yeah,
was
I was
seventh grade.
probably early 80s for me, like late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was in seventh grade. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
That's
gonna
around the time. Yeah. Hmm.
I'm gonna have to look into that because I was like, whoa,
They're related. Yeah, they're definitely related.
I was shocked because I didn't know. Anyway,
Isn't
back
that
to,
crazy?
it's
So
called
yeah,
the
so the
gate.
remote viewing thing, I guess psychic and remote viewing is kind of hard to differentiate for some people. But what I always tell people with the Foley, it's like reverse psychometry, is how I look at it. So
Okay.
psychometry, you know this, but just
Yeah.
for people listening,
Hold
is
an
when you hold
object.
an item and then you describe the energy, who it might belong to, the history, and so forth. What I do is I get all that information ahead of time, then I find the object. So it's kind of a flip around.
That's amazing. I love that. And you've helped so many people. I mean, I
That's
see
the best part. Yeah.
comments, the follow-up videos people make. It's wonderful, especially when it's like something super important to the person.
Yeah, and
Something that's
sometimes
very
it's as silly
meaningful.
as a pillow that their grandma made for their tooth, or a hand lotion. I had a lady that had this hand lotion that smelled really wonderful. She was really sad she couldn't find it. I've had people lose laundry. I've had people lose, animals. Now, people, I'm a little hesitant to
Yeah.
do much for a lot of reasons, especially legality
Mhm.
and privacy issues. And I don't want ever somebody feel like I'm taking advantage or giving false hope or wrong information. That's something I'm a little bit, I usually won't do, but I have done a little of that before
And it
successfully.
depends who's asking. See,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes you've got some person that may not need to find the other person. Like
Right.
sometimes
So
there's a reason that person.
one of the requests I got the other day was somebody needed a passcode. Her brother had passed and she wanted to get the passcode to get in his phone because there was pictures and things she wanted in there and it was important. And I went ahead and did it, but later I thought about it and I thought, I don't really know if that's her brother's phone. I don't really know if that's her, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know. And I realized later, maybe I won't be doing that right
Yeah.
now. Like, that just seems like a bad idea.
Yeah. Did
I
you
just
get the
don't
code?
know. I don't know. She never followed up. I'm going to
Oh,
assume not.
oh,
But
okay.
she never followed up, whoever it was. And that's the problem. If people don't, that's another reason I ask people to do testimonies or at least tell me when they find their item. Not just so I know they did it, but just because, yeah, then I can tell the story.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, the other question I had is, what is your most memorable Foley? Like, is there one that sticks out that's amazing?
Yeah. Well, some of them are really wild, honestly. But I think probably the one that I bring up a lot of is an example for people to understand because it's not always a direct line. It's not like I say, oh, it's in your refrigerator behind the eggs. That's not usually how it comes out. It's
Right.
more like I see this and I smell this and it looks like it's laying this way and so forth. So it's more positional, I guess, or locational. So um, a woman had asked for, this is one of the very first successful ones besides the cat. She lost her ring and she says, it's important, it belonged to my grandma, blah, blah, blah. And I said, all right. And it's during live. And I saw a garden and I saw the soil. I saw under the plants. And I said, it's in your garden, in the dirt. I think that's what I'm seeing and smelling. And she says, no, that's impossible. I don't go in my garden and I don't garden. She says, I have a garden. I never go in my garden. And I definitely wouldn't be out there and I wouldn't lose my ring out there. That doesn't make any sense. And I said, okay, well, anyways, that's what I got. No matter what I did, that's what kept coming up.
Right.
So finally, a couple days later, sure enough, the message I get from her says, I found my ring, but not where you said, but your clue helped me. So this is important to hear if you're interested in me doing this, because you have to
Yes.
keep your mind open and be
Yes.
creative. She finally decides she's looked everywhere. She's going to go ahead and look where that crazy psychic told her to look. She
Hmm.
goes to put her rubber boots on to walk out to the garden because it's muddy. And as she puts her foot in the boot, in the boot is her ring.
I got chills. I got chills.
The reason that happened was there was sort of like a vestibule, like a little table. She'd throw her keys and all her stuff, when she walked in the
Yeah.
house.
And it
Apparently
just flicked
took her
off.
ring off or something, and it slid off into her boots next to the table. And it'd been missing for like months. And so that's how she found it. So I always try to tell that story because a lot of times it's not, like I said, not exactly where I said, but it leads you there.
Right.
It's happened hundreds of times that way. So
I love it. And it reminds me of how mediumship works. When you are getting information from loved ones in spirit, we don't have the client's life experience. We have our life experience. So you saw the garden, you didn't see the boots. Same thing in mediumship. It could be you saw the garden, but they were talking about the gardening boots or whatever.
Right.
I think that if I wish more people understood that in mediumship, some things will be exact, some things will be vague, some things we're just interpreting impressions. So
I kind of tell people it's like when you're looking at scrolling through, let's say TikTok, if you were to scroll really fast and you try to catch things that you see scrolling by, that's why I only get partial information sometimes. Sometimes it's just parts of it. I'm not able to catch it all.
Yeah, because
I could, and sometimes they're very clear. It just depends what's coming through. Sometimes it's super exact.
Exactly, and sometimes, in my experience, it's like somebody sitting here just feeding me information. I'm just like blah 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 blah.
Right.
And sometimes it's like that scroll, like, oh, I saw a cat. Oh, I saw a cat. I saw a cigarette. I don't know what any of this means.
But those ones are the ones that are usually the most compelling when you see something really, like I see a Pikachu smoking a cigar.
Right.
And I go, oh my God, I had a Pikachu that smoked a cigar. It's just like weird, but those are the ones that you can't ignore. Those are the ones.
That's my tattoo, the Pikachu with the cigar, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, why would I pick that? That's when they go, oh my gosh, you really did tune in. Yes, I did.
So you were a medium before you were the finder of lost items. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when you talked a little bit at the beginning about your journey with the tarot cards.
Yes.
So you did tarot, and then when did you become a medium, or did you get trained to become a medium? How did you become a medium?
I didn't even understand the difference. I thought psychics, mediums, it was all the same thing. Like I thought it was all the same boat.
Okay.
And I had an incident right around 2020 when it has to do with missing person, as a matter of fact. And my spirit guide, my great grandmother, came through and was urging me to go find her, this person locally where I was living. And anyways, it was kind of a crazy situation. I didn't find her, but I did, sort of, in a weird way. And I went to get help because it upset me that I wasn't able to save somebody. And I went to a workshop that was a channeling workshop at a metaphysical store near where I lived. I didn't know what channeling was. I thought it was all the same thing. Okay. So I go to this channeling workshop, and the guy that was conducting it and teaching it, very small group, maybe 20 people in this, at night. It was like a 2-hour thing, $25 to get in, not a big deal. In a room of 25 people I don't know. He had set up like a booth to go in. I don't know if you've ever watched seances or things when they do these types of channeling. They usually will go into a private booth, even though you might be able to see them, to sort of get in that energy. And he just turned to me and said, you go in there. And he'd done all these other exercises leading up to that. So I said, okay. And I went in there, and boy, did I channel. I didn't even know I could do it. I didn't even know what it was. It scared me a little, honestly. I came out of there crying because I was freaked out. It wasn't bad. Nothing bad happened. It just was a lot. And the way you feel when that energy comes through you is not something most humans experience. So that happened. And then I started to understand that there was different categories of intuitiveness. And honestly, most of them I cover. I mean, I can't see auras or anything like that, but and maybe I will at some point, because what has happened for me, Nikki, and maybe this has happened for you, is over time, the ability to stack up, like more things show up.
Yes.
Out of the blue. Like the spirit drawing was another one I really didn't know I could do, nor did I know I could do it the way I do it, or use it the way I use it. So that's another one of those types of divination. I'm like, I didn't
Yeah,
know I
I
could.
got that. Oh, that's on my list to ask you about.
Oh,
But
I'm sure it is.
so after the channeling, and I love the way you said that the abilities keep coming in because I started reading cards less than a year ago,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I never imagined I would ever be doing. And oh my, it's gonna make me cry just thinking about it. The way spirit guides those cards out blows my
right,
just blows my
right. Blows
mind.
your mind. Yeah,
So you did the channeling. It was very powerful. And I always wonder because I get a little overwhelmed with fear of the access to this kind of power.
right,
Like, I want to do the right thing.
right.
Sometimes I'm like, at the beginning, when I was first getting trained, especially, like,
Hmm.
it's overwhelming the amount of access you have. And so I
Right.
kind of hold myself back a little because it kind of
Oh yeah, we all do
hurts
it.
me.
We all
Um,
do it. Yeah.
so after the channeling, then what happened as far as your mediumship journey?
Well, I want to speak to that really quick. What you were saying about the feeling. You know what it reminds me of? If you know, if you ever try a new like psychedelic drug or something,
Yeah,
like you're always a little excited but scared too.
yeah,
And almost always you're okay, but there's times where it's a little like, oh wow, I didn't expect this to happen. And it can be a little scary. And sometimes it makes you hesitant to try it again. I'm not saying I'm not promoting it either way. I'm
no, no,
just saying
yeah,
that's kind of how it feels to me.
yeah.
So the mediumship part came when weirdly somebody friended me out of, matter of fact, so weird. Today she contacted me. That's so funny that this is coming up. Friended me through Facebook. I knew who she was because she was a local DJ, but I didn't know her personally, but apparently had a lot of same friends. So she follows me one day on Facebook, and I think her mother had just passed.
Hmm.
And I said something about it. And whatever I said apparently connected to her mother.
Hmm.
I didn't realize. Like I said something like, oh, well, November, like the date or something. I said something that was specific to her mother. And she says, whoa, wait a minute. What are you saying? And I said, well, and then I started talking to her through actually texting us. I never met her. And she's like, oh my God, that's right. Oh my gosh, that's right. And I was doing mediumship through texting on Facebook, not realizing.
Yeah.
So we were doing that for like a good hour. I get done, and then I'm like talking to my boyfriend at the time, and I go, I think I just did mediumship for somebody. And he says, that's bizarre. And then I said, wait, there's more. So I started telling some more stuff. And anyway, she invites me to her house, okay, at this point. And she lived right up the street from me. And she has her sister over there and says, do you think you could talk to my mother some more? And I said, ow. I
Yeah.
felt really on the spot.
Pressure, pressure.
Oh my gosh, I was so freaked out. But I said, well, let's just try. So I sat there, and sure enough, her mother came through again, extremely specific, very, very direct to both her sister and she. Then brought up her brother I didn't even know about because, of course, I know nothing about this woman. I mean, I don't know why I went to her house, but I knew she was locally known, so I felt safe enough. And started talking about her brother and some stuff with her brother. And then this is the weirdest thing. I said, I see a man wearing what looks like an old fisherman's hat, with like the pipe, like the whole, like, that the fisherman you imagine, the salty dog, with the hat and the pipe
Yeah.
and the turtleneck and all that, and I see him this long boat with a cigar, and he has a really weird name and a really funny accent. Her husband's dad is from Holland, and he is a fisherman. And she runs into the other room. I haven't even left the same spot I sat down. Yanks a picture off the fridge, runs over, and shows me that exact thing. And at
Wow.
that point, I was like, how much more proof do I
Yeah.
need to know that I know that I know?
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So that was your first experience.
That was my first real experience, yes.
And then did you get trained? Did you just keep practicing? How did you develop?
I failed a lot. I practiced a lot. I
Y'all
failed a
do.
lot. I read a lot. I watched a lot of people. I did take a couple workshops here and there via video, but because of the way that I learn, I'm better off mostly learning on my own. But
Mhm.
what I did was I started watching other people like you. I mean, not you specifically, but I watched other people, and I'd say, I don't vibe with that. They seem
Yeah.
phony.
Yeah.
This person seems authentic. And often I'd write them a little note, and they'd be happy to write me back and say, here's, my advice. But I think, and I'm going to give somebody credit who's here on TikTok. I don't know if you know her, but Lorenda really helped me one day.
Oh, Lorenda I love her.
She didn't mentor me per se. Yeah, she's one of my friends now, good friends now. But I don't know why I reached out to her of all people, but something told me to reach out to her. I had been doing mediumship and it was coming out accurate, but the problem I was having is it was coming out for the next client. Like I was on the wrong timeline or something. It was weird. I do a reading for somebody, they'd say, no, none of that's for me. And I think, I do a reading for the next person, they say, no, none of that's for me. And then upon talking to them, realizing somehow they got switched.
Yeah.
And that was happening a lot. And it was freaking me out. And I thought, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. So I talked to Lorinda, and I don't even remember what she said to me. I really don't. But whatever, it was like a 10-minute conversation. Whatever advice she gave me after that, it was like on like Donkey Kong. I have not had a problem since.
Yeah.
But more than anything, I think it's applying it and just doing it. And I think the biggest step for me, my motto is know that you know. That's why it's Miss Molly Knows, because of my life of self-doubt. It's reminding me. I think just not questioning anymore. And even if somebody says, I don't know what that is, I just say, that's okay. You don't have to know. You will. And they do. They always figure it out later. So I'm not worried about it anymore.
I love that, that Miss Molly knows the reason why that
gave is because it wasn't called that originally. Yeah.
You know that you have to trust that spirit is smarter than all of us by a million times.
Yeah.
And you are correct often. So because I have to have instruction because I came from a science background.
Everybody's different.
I didn't think this was real. And so I'm like, well, I need somebody to teach me because if I just look stuff up on the internet, I'm going to think I'm making it up because I was very analytical minded.
Right.
And so I got a mentor, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things she always said is you have to trust and allow that spiritual intelligence will prevail.
That's hard to believe because we still want to make it us. Think it's us.
Yeah. And that they know. And so many times, like you've said, your clients will email you later and say, I found this, or you were right about Aunt Betty and her flag dress or whatever, whatever.
Right.
Because they get psychic amnesia or spirit gives us information that's going to happen the next day or the day after. I love it.
I figure you're going to find out when they're supposed to. And that's why I say you're going to find it when you're supposed to. And, like when people repeatedly lose certain things, like a lot of people repeatedly lose their wedding ring or repeatedly lose their keys. To me, that's more than just a problem, just losing things. That's psychologically, to me, is saying they don't want to go somewhere or they don't want to be married. Or to me, that's how I feel. Because I don't lose that stuff. And I lose shit all the time. Pardon my language, but I lose things constantly. But that's not the kind of stuff I lose.
Right.
Not stuff that's super important to me.
I think part of that can be psychological, like people who are chronically late.
Exactly.
Like you're an hour late for everything you do. There's a reason for that. That's not just poor time.
Exactly. So I think it's sort of a escapism in a sense.
Yeah.
And so that's why another reason why people ask me to find something, if they lose the same item again, they ask me again. I'm like, no, you need to work on something. That's why I tell me there's something you got to work on. I'm not helping you find that again.
Exactly. I love that. No. I did see on your link tree that your predictions for 2025. So,
crazy.
Are we going to survive? No.
Yeah, we will. We always do.
So is that something you do annually? Do you do that every month? Is that, how do you, what's your timeline for doing those predictions?
I don't like predictions. I'll be honest with you. I don't like them for a lot of reasons. To me, I feel like I'm showboating. Like, look at me. I'm magical. I know the future. Yeah. At the same time, I like it because it's cool to see it actually play out. But what I don't like is sometimes I don't like what I'm seeing and I don't really want to tell people, honestly. And that's true in mediumship too sometimes. I don't always like what I'm getting. I don't always like to tell people. So it's hard for me to do them because I don't like doing them because I feel like either I'm showing off, it looks like, or it's not something people necessarily like all the time. Sometimes it is. So with the reason that's come up is actually Leslie Fear, who is a podcaster as well, that I've been on her show a few times. She just loves me doing those. Every time I've done them on her show, they've been wildly successful. So it's kind of become a thing for us every, 6 months or so. She has me on the show and I do predictions. But the last 2 times I've been on her show, and now this 3rd time, my predictions have been so weird that when we finished recording, like got off the live or the podcast, I've said, I feel weird. I can't believe I said those things. Like, I don't know how I feel about this podcast. I say that every time. Like, I don't like what I said, or like, I feel like people are gonna think I'm a nut. But as it turns out, I haven't been wrong. So Well,
Yeah.
the UFO thing was one that was weird. Over a year ago, I said the government's going to start telling us about UFOs, and they're not going to tell us the truth, and they're going to lie, and they're going to make it sound different than what actually is happening. And that's what happened. But I remember when I said those words, I felt like a dork. I was like, really? People are going to think I'm a nut. And there it was.
Well, I mean, every the careers and we have right now, there's a lot of people who think we're not. So
Well, we're not for them.
exactly.
Half of America is nuts as far as I'm concerned. So, and you know what I'm referring to.
I do. 100% check.
Check. Check all.
Absolutely. So I love that. And I guess the predictions come out kind of as channeling as well for you.
Yeah.
Is it accurate to say? And the other thing I want to talk about, because you're ambidextrous.
Apparently.
Have you always been ambidextrous?
Kind of.
Kind
I'm
of.
not lie, slightly, but not writing.
What's your
not with a
dominant
pen.
hand? What's your dominant
Right.
hand?
My right hand is
Your
dominant.
right hand dominant. I would have guessed you were left hand dominant
I'll tell you why.
because of the ambidextrousness.
My mother's a lefty. My brother is a lefty. I think my dad is also a lefty.
Wow.
When I was little, I started out a little bit with my left hand. And then I think a teacher told me to use the other hand because I was smearing paper, you know? But the reason I am that way is when I was 5, I broke my wrist, my right wrist, and I was just learning to write.
Oh.
And so I had to use my left hand for everything I did at that time. And I got good at doing everything with my left hand except writing. That was the one thing I didn't really get comfortable with. And then when I started doing spirit drawing, I always did just drawing. One day, again, on a live for fun,
I think I was watching that.
I think you were on, yeah.
And I'm like, she's ambidextrous. She's drawing with both her hands at the same time.
I didn't know I could, honestly. I hadn't tried it up to that point. So when I was on the live one day, I said, there's a woman called Sunlight Oracle, I think she's called. I found her on Instagram, and she does two-handed spirit drawings. I just happened to find them. Algorithm brought her to me, and she actually just does drawings, writes all the descriptions in there, and then she has a library or a gallery of pictures she's drawn with all the descriptive information that she's doing, like a database for people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little much for me. I don't want to go to that extent. But I brought it up, and during the live, someone said, well, do you think you could do one? And I said, again, why not? What's it hurt? It's just ink. It's just a piece of paper. So I grabbed 2 pens and I did. Now, the first few times I did it, a little bit hard to tell what you're looking. I mean, they weren't great, but they weren't bad. Now I'm so used to doing 2 hands. When I try to do it one hand, it feels weird.
I've noticed watching your ambidextrous spirit drawings over the last, 2 years, maybe? I don't even know how long at this point. They have changed. They've changed and become much more symmetrical. Like in the beginning, they were a little, asymmetrical.
Yeah, a little scribbly, yeah.
Which is understandable. But now it's like they're perfectly symmetrical more and more and more.
Shaded. They have really good shading.
They're amazing. They're incredible.
Like they pop out. It's bizarre. It blows my mind because I have no clue what I'm doing when I start. I don't know what it's going to be.
And
I really don't.
And you call it scrying?
Yeah, I didn't originally call it that. Again, I don't know all the terminology that well, but somebody said to me, that's actually considered scrying, just like looking into water, just like looking into a crystal ball. It's channeling, really, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that term before, so I just wanted to ask.
Yeah. Scrying is when you use a tool to divine. It's a divination tool. So scrying can be, I think, water witching. Scrying can be spirit drawing. Scrying can be staring into water or into a bowl or a mirror. It's all considered scrying, I guess.
Oh, all right. Well, I learned something new. I didn't know.
Yeah, I just heard that. I didn't know either. I was like, oh.
Because I draw pictures and write when I do my meet. I don't do the scribble.
Yeah, I do too.
I just.
Yeah, sometimes I draw, write shit down. Yeah, I have to.
I can't not. I just started doing it one day, probably a couple of years into my mediumship, and I'm like, oh, this is really useful because like some of the things I'm drawing, like you said, you don't even know it's just coming out. And then I say, that's a boat. Do you know and they're like, oh, yeah, that's important.
And sometimes they crisscross. Things can overlap. So for example, I've done, like, this has happened a lot lately. I've been doing a drawing and it's actually a drawing of somebody they know. And I'm not really aiming for that because I don't know the person. I've had people say, that's my grandma, that's my deceased husband, that's my best friend, that's my son. Like, I don't do that on purpose,
Right.
but I can. And we've done FOLI using spirit drawings too. We tried that one night and that went pretty well. Another time we did candlelight sigils. So I took pieces of paper and did like scorch marks on paper, and then took a pen and sort of whatever I saw, drew over it and gave them whatever it was. And that was really a fun. I got to do that again. It was really fun. We got some great results from that. Just
That
playing, just trying.
that's just amazing that you are fearless enough to just try it, because a lot of people aren't. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people are like, I can't do that, you
Oh,
know.
I know. I
Just
have people
Jesus.
ask me about spirit drawing. I wish I could do that. I'm like, you can. Get a
Yeah.
pen, get paper. It's pretty easy. You're not going to be good at it the first time. You're not going to be good at anything the first time.
Well, and people have a problem quieting their mind and
Yep.
shutting everything up, and
Yep.
that's the problem
Correct.
with that. So let's see. I just want to ask you a little bit about tarot and oracle card readings.
Sure.
Do you pull cards for yourself?
Not too often anymore. I have. Yeah, I do sometimes. I don't really feel the need most of the time. Matter of
Okay.
fact, I always say about the cards, I mean, I like them and all, and I have a lot of cards, but I super don't need them.
Okay,
Make
good.
it easier.
Just curious. I always like to ask everybody.
No, no, it's a good
Some
question, but I'm saying I
people
don't need them,
pull
but
cards
it
for
is easier.
themselves every day.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that you can just, the more you pull the cards for yourself, it can get kind of muddled and meaningless. Like,
Well, because I don't have discernment whether it's myself or some other thought coming in sometimes. I can't tell.
yeah. Um,
So actually
and
stop.
do you, I was having a discussion with another tarot reader on a live the other night, and we were talking about negative spirits. Now, I have never encountered a negative spirit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I've connected with the thousands of readings, I've never encountered a negative spirit. Now, this tarot reader, her name is Lise, she goes by Lady Shadow. Um, she has done a lot of ghost hunting in
Mm-hmm.
Gettysburg. I think that's what she said. I'm pretty sure. Um, I don't know. I've never been there, but
Mm-hmm.
she said she has encountered negative spirits. And I said, can you explain the difference between what, like, do you think it's a ghost? Because I think ghosts are just spirits just walking
Yeah,
around,
yeah.
like, and we're just
Sorry,
seeing
my
them.
dog.
And she's like, was trying to explain her interpretation of what a negative spirit or entity is. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
wondering, what's your experience and belief about that?
I don't. I guess I don't categorize like this is a good or this is a bad, a good witch, a bad witch, a good. It's more like an energy, as we know.
Mhm.
And honestly, most of the time when you pull in negative, whatever it might be, it's because there's something going on with you. Usually, like with me,
I
the only
see.
times I've had anything come in a reading that wasn't so nice, it's usually when I'm in a bad place. That's why I generally won't do it. And I don't think, again, I don't think. I think we influence that spirituality too. That's why it's so important to be positive when you're doing this because like when people get on my lives and they start saying I think there's a negative spirit in my or a nasty spirit in my house where I shut it down. I'm like, okay, it's acting that way, that doesn't mean it is that way. Just like when a child's screaming and banging on the floor and acting like a big baby doesn't mean they're a bad kid, they're having a moment. And
Right.
sometimes if your moment matches their moment, you draw that in because that's how we connect, right? It's sort of like we have to turn a magnet on that draws in that spirit to connect to us.
Right.
So if you're in a
Exactly.
crappy mood and you bring, not saying that's what happened with her, I'm just saying in my personal experience, that's the case. I have had a couple try to pop in, but because I'm so positive, I feel it like right away. And I'm already like, no,
Right.
I could shut them out. I'm like, I don't want to hear you. I don't want to deal with you. When I started out, I had a lot of that because that's what I believed because I watched all those shows.
Right.
So if a cabinet opened and shut, in my house,
Yeah.
no, I'm like, a cabinet opens and shut. I'm like, yeah, who's here? Who's
I
here? What do you
love that.
want?
I love that you're saying that, because I don't believe that the souls of our loved ones are bad or evil or negative. The souls are pure love. That's my belief. And I've never encountered a negative soul. I've encountered souls that tell me they did bad things when they were people
Mm-hmm.
and come in with an apology.
Yeah.
I also tell people if I'm doing a live stream and somebody's like, you're talking to demons or whatever, or you'll see other people doing live streams and they're
Mm-hmm.
talking about negative spirits attached to you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all, like, exactly what you said, a projection of your own thoughts, people who haven't done their
Mhm.
own healing work. And I think that's extremely important for anyone working in any healing modality to do their own healing work. And
Right.
any of that negative stuff, I think, comes from the place they're at. So
Yeah, and it's very Hollywood too. It's a belief because if you're watching things like Ghost Hunters and a lot of those shows, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of those shows, you're seeing that's what people want to see, the creepy stuff. So they're kind of inviting that when they do that. I'm not
yeah,
saying it's not real. I can't say I'm not there, and I've been on ghost hunts, and I have seen some cuckoo stuff happen. But and I've had, yeah, there's been incidences that weren't so pleasant, we'll say, but nothing that's ever harmed me. And I really do think you're always in control if you want to be. People saying, "Oh, you open a portal, you can't close." No, that's not true. Come on,
yeah.
come on, like that's movie shit. I'm not saying there aren't portals. There are, but believe me, they aren't showing up in your living room because you bought a Ouija board at Target. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, we see a lot of things out there, don't we, that are like, no, I don't think that's happening. And speaking of crazy weirdness that people, are all in a tizzy about all the time, I saw that you had some UFO UAP stuff on your link tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to ask you your opinions because, my master's degree is in astronomy and I
Right, right.
look at the sky every single
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
And I've seen some weird stuff myself and had some weird experiences, but I wanted to know, since you live on the ocean, I don't know if I'm okay to say where, but where there's a lot of,
Miami area. Yeah.
okay, I didn't want anybody to come,
Okay. Yeah. No, they don't know where I am.
um,
Not
do
about it. It'd
you
be hard to
ever,
find me.
because there is a lot of reports of UFOs in that area. And
Yeah.
so do you ever see weird stuff? And what's your opinion? Is it aliens? Is it the government? What do
Yeah.
you think it is?
I haven't seen anything since I've been here as far as that goes. I have in my lifetime seen things here and there, but nothing here in Florida. Of course, we see the space launches all the time,
Yeah.
Cape Canaveral and all those things. But I will say that, being on the water, definitely more conductive. Like my work is much more accurate when I'm on the boat, for sure.
Salt water.
Also less distraction from electronics and people and traffic. And you know what I mean? Like I don't have that input interfering. But as far as UFOs and UAPs go, the only reason they started calling them UAPs is because they're not just flying objects, first of all. Because people are like, why did they change the name? There's also stigma attached to UFO.
Yes. Yes.
So another reason they changed the name. We've known about it all along. It's always been in history. You can look at ancient art or even medieval art. They paint them in the
Medieval
background.
art, some of my favorite UFO evidence.
Yes. Christopher Columbus wrote about seeing UFOs coming out of the water. I don't think he just wrote about, I mean, you guys got to remember when people were writing about this stuff or talking about this stuff or even etching it into stone in some cases, the reason you got to think about it, they didn't have anything in the sky that had lights except for stars and planets and the sun and the
And
moon.
the
So there was nothing in the sky that should have been lit up.
and Christopher Columbus, as a sailor or captain or whatever, would have known astronomy very well because you have to
Absolutely.
navigate by the stars.
Right.
He would
Right.
have been aware of what was in the sky, what was normally in the sky. So
Right.
anybody
And I
who,
also think that's kind of where the term angel comes from when the visualization of angel with wings. I don't really know if people or angels have wings per se. I
yeah, I
think the
don't
wings were put to display they were from the sky. That was the only way they could indicate it came from the sky, like a bird, wings.
agree.
That's my opinion. Okay.
I
Now,
agree with
not to say that we haven't manifested that form now that we've all believed that for so long,
that.
but that's what I think. And I think that they come down and they show us technology, and then we think, oh, it's magic. They must be an angel. When the reality is they're probably extraterrestrials. And I'm going to say this, I know people might not like this, but very possibly, and this is a theory, and I'm sure you've heard it, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, all these figures are actually extraterrestrial. And in India, they talk about
Yes.
spaceships.
Yes.
They talk about extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
Even the
like
Mormon religion has some references.
it's
Yeah,
everyday life for their belief system. The
exactly.
I
So I believe they are absolutely exist. I believe they probably live among us more than likely, and we don't even realize. And I think they are here to help us. There are species that are not nice, just like humans are some nice humans and not nice humans. But I think generally they're trying to help us because if they didn't like us and they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it a long time ago.
I tell people
They can do it anytime they want.
that we there would, it's not like Independence Day where there's going to be a big fire
Mhm.
shootout,
They're going to want you to believe that, though.
aliens would drop a virus in the
Yep.
air and we'd all be
Yep.
dead in 3 days and we'd never know the aliens were here.
Or
They
flat ass.
they would not take the resources to bring heavy metal machinery across the galaxy, which takes enormous resources. When you
Right.
can take a petri dish the size of this notepad,
Mm-hmm.
some virus, and kill the whole planet.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that we don't understand about them because they're actually very spiritual. Like a lot of their communication is through energy and thought. Like you've heard people tell stories like they talked to me, but they didn't talk to me. Well, why
Yeah,
is that any different than a spirit?
well, yes.
Like it's the same idea. So, and the idea that we're knowing how vast our universe is endless. To think that we're the only intelligent life is really dumb. Like you sound dumb when you say you don't believe there's extraterrestrials. Now,
It's
maybe you don't believe that we've seen them here. That's
it's
your choice.
yeah.
But the government's never going to tell us the truth because it takes their control away. If we're all fighting one big enemy, so to speak, guess what? They have control, and that's what I've said in some of these videos: is the government's going to tell us they're hurting us, but they're not. Just be aware of that.
When I started studying astronomy was 1990-ish, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw the term I was in college, astrobiology. I was at City College of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Props to the city colleges. And my class was up in the telescope room.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this thing about astrobiology, and I'm like, wow, what is that? That sounds like
Yeah.
aliens. And that's my specialty. My
Right.
graduate's biology, my master's is
That's
astronomy.
so cool.
That's what I've studied.
Yeah.
And when that happened in 1990, you could hardly find an astronomer to admit there's life anywhere else. Now
Yeah.
that we know, since
Mm-hmm.
Hubble, because Hubble went up, now since that we know, they're all on board. Yeah, there's
Right.
aliens, they're just not here yet. They're just
They
not,
weren't allowed to talk about it
yeah,
without losing their funding from the government.
a lot of suppression. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe personally that most of the UFOs we see are our stuff,
I agree. I
and
agree.
there's
I
a
think they
lot of
reverse engineered a few
disinformation.
things.
I think we have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of incredible craft we've made under the
Mm-hmm.
radar. And
Well, I mean, yeah, think about how our military works. They're not going to let stuff fly around in our sky if they didn't know what it was.
no,
Like when those
exactly.
drones came out a few months back and everybody's going, and that was one of the things I had warned about.
I
Everybody's
said
going,
something
oh,
about that too. Yeah.
and the government's like, well, we don't know what they are, but they're okay. Don't worry about it. Why would they say that
Yeah.
unless they know
They
what they
know
are?
what they are.
They just
Yeah.
didn't know how to respond to it. They didn't know how to tell us what they were. And it
Right.
was a good distraction during a very important time, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, they know.
Yeah. If you know they're drones, they're not aliens. I tell people we're not that interesting for fleets of spaceships to come here and just watch us. Like they
Yeah,
can put something in orbit and know everything we're doing if they can come across
right.
the galaxy.
Yeah,
Like
but the plasmas that people have been seeing, the weird plasmas, I don't know about those. Those very well could be.
I don't think I've seen those. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, that's the thing that's been blowing people's mind. They're looking in the sky and they're seeing these like weird, like plasma looking things. I don't know if that's our government, or if it is, they don't know how to
Is it
control it
like
or
a zoomed
something.
in picture of something, or is it?
It just looks like a blob that has energy moving around in it in the sky. I
So
actually have a picture of a couple, but people have took a video of them and photos of them, and I don't think our government is advanced enough, or our military, whoever is doing it, advanced enough to make those. They
I'm
almost look like holograms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna look those up because I know
yeah. I don't know about
zoom in the
those.
camera, like I did this last night, weirdly, on the star Sirius. I zoomed my camera in because I was looking at the full
Yeah,
moon. I zoomed the camera in and it looks like a plasma ball because Sirius is very sparkly and
right, right.
you just
That's
color.
what they've been seeing is these weird like move. They like move around inside them, like it's like wispy looking and it's
Yeah.
like a hologram.
Yeah,
So I don't know about those.
yeah, I'm going to definitely look that up. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to promote or tell us before we finish up here? Website, where can they find you?
Oh, sure.
What?
My website is missmollyknows.com. If you ever want to contact me, that's a really easy way to get a hold of me. Another way would be if you're looking for an item, finder of lost items at yahoo.com. You can directly send me a message and I will respond with an automated kind of telling you what to expect and how to find me and have a FOLI if you want. And nothing specific coming up. I mean, there will be things. I've just been super busy with my boat lately, but I will be trying to get on with more regularity, like at least once a week if I can. And I just dropped a podcast on Monday, because I want to know, with Leslie Fear, another one. So, and then now you. So those are the new things coming up.
Wonderful. And I really appreciate you being here, and I'm very thankful. And I cannot wait for you to be our guest on the Spirit Exchange,
I
me
know.
and Kathy in the summer. And
That'll be
everybody
fun.
will be seeing the promos for that. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
just appreciate you very much.
I do too. I learn from you all the time. And Roxy says,
Hi, Roxy.